Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. It's match day, which means we're teaming up with our friends at Celtic Down Under and with Sean Conley. Just remind us, Sean, before we get into the nitty gritty of that first half, where are you dialing in from? It's the back of 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Where are you?
Perth in Western Australia, so it's almost midnight, just before midnight.
Dedication, mate. Dedication. I'm going to start with a positive, right? Before the game kicked off, you and I spoke about Haksabanovic, and we suggested, I think you suggested a hat-trick. I said maybe a brace or a hat-trick. He got a brace in that first half. So let's focus on his performance and the 2 goals that he scored before we get to all that other stuff that seems to dominate our conversations, even if we don't want it to, Sean. We'll start off with Haksabanovic. What do you make of that for a first half performance?
Yeah, he was getting in the right positions. It was a kind of a Bada style thing. I actually think he was, towards the end of the half, he was looking a bit tired. He wasn't making the runs and stuff, but the 2 goals, great, getting in great positions. And the second goal, you've got to take a shot to get a goal, but I think, to be fair, he's probably had like a dozen or so shots in the past that have been better than that have been saved. So I guess today's just it's coming up. It's his turn to get the break of the ball, But he's deserved it. He's got us ahead in this game,
Yeah, and again, it's one of the things we were talking about before the game, where Ange Postecoglou is rotating his squad. He's doing it in such a way where he's tinkering rather than wholesale. I think when he tried more of a wholesale approach, it didn't quite work against St Mirren. We bring in Haksabanovic and he shines, he scores a couple of goals. I'd get what you mean there with regards to him fading a little bit near the end of the first half. I go back to the point that he made a couple of weeks ago. He's not quite there in terms of his sharpness and his fitness just yet, but he is showing us what he can do. But it really is a game of those 2 Celtic goals, because when he opens his scoring, we've had a few chances. Jota's looking in the mood. Jota sets him up. He opens the scoring. And at that point, I know it's only 6 or 7 minutes into the game, Sean, I'm thinking, right, Celtic are in the rhythm here. And it could almost be anything. Now, some people say to us, why do you always go on about officials' decisions and refereeing and VAR? Well, what actually happens, Sean, is all it takes is one bad decision and the whole rhythm of your play is affected. And it took Celtic a while to get back into that, I felt. Therefore, let's talk about that first VAR decision. Let's talk about the first one. Bernabe facing in a different direction. He's got no idea how his arm's going to connect with the ball. Not only that, he's penalised for it, but he gets booked. What was your take on it?
Ridiculous, scandalous. If you go and read the rules, there's just, I cannot figure out any interpretation of the rule that makes that a penalty. I think the reason it's given is that he's had Nick Walsh saying in his ear, that's a penalty, or I think that's a penalty, or something to that effect. And Nick Walsh is obviously senior to David Dickinson, who should probably go back to hunting for bargains. And he's just given it because Nick Walsh has said it in his ear, to be totally honest with you.
Bargains, like it. Listen, I was going to say, just to clarify, right, so the incident happens. Anyone with a pair of eyes in their head, anyone who loves football, has watched any football, played at any kind of level, even if it was just a half-time kind of thing that you did and you scored at Parkhead, knows that in no walk of life is that a penalty kick. No way.
No.
That's never a penalty kick, right? So then what happens is, as you say, you've got Nick Walsh in the referee's ear. He then goes and reviews it. Oh, sorry, the situation's reviewed and he's getting all the information in his ear. Now, I've heard there are some broadcasters, Laura was talking about this on Friday, there are some broadcasters who are privy to that conversation. So when these commentators are watching games down south, they can also hear what advice the referee's been given. Right. Who makes a decision, Sean?
I'm confident it was Nick Walsh that made. I mean, obviously David Dickinson's blown the whistle, but I'm extremely confident that is a Nick Walsh decision because David Dickinson is seeing absolutely nothing out there. Like, he didn't see high feet. He's not seen Fletcher pulling Hatate back. Like, his vision is so bad that I would say he probably cut Craig Sibbald's hair at some point in the last week, which is what's going on with that dude.
Listen, I don't normally get involved in slagging other people's hair, but yeah, I will participate on this occasion. Listen, you're spot on. There was also the Stephen Fletcher body check with his hind end near the end of that first half, which Was it Stephen Fletcher? I mean, if you
No,
don't
it
see
was,
that, what game are you
McGrath.
watching?
It was
McGrath.
McGrath.
What game are you watching if
Yeah.
you don't see that? So with regards to that being ridiculous, I don't know what stream you were watching, but I would have loved to have heard Tom Boyd's response. Were you watching the Tom
Oh,
Boyd commentary at that point?
he was incredulous, and he was actually mocking himself. I think he's actually been hearing a bit of the kind of feedback he's been getting recently, so he did actually go kind of have a go at himself for like, are you going to have a go at me for that one, Paul? Kind of thing. He was really. And consistently throughout the half, it's like, oh, we know that's not given because he's not wearing a green and white jersey.
It becomes difficult. It becomes difficult though, Sean, because I mean, I love Tom Boyd, right? You see what he done for the club. He commentates with passion. Let's just say he commentates with the green specs on totally, and he knows he does. And Paul Cuddihy the other night there, when Tom wasn't commentating, made a few references to it, and that's great, and I love that. And then you see that decision there today, and you think to yourself, how else can you view this? There's a lot of comments coming in. Stephen Sloan, off the bat, gone are the days we were up against 12 men. With the arrival of VAR, it looks like we're up against 13 men every week.
He's not wrong.
Right, and the thing is, Sean, I'm looking at it as well, and right, so they've implemented VAR. VAR is one of these almost industry standard applications that have been added to football elsewhere. We're now obviously working it into our game. And you ask yourself, is the system of VAR at fault, or is it still the officials? I'm definitely going with the officials every time.
It's definitely not VAR. Giving VAR to our referees is like giving knives to monkeys. Do you know what I mean? Like, a knife is a useful tool if used correctly, but these monkeys are just going to do themselves some harm,
Well, that first half, I mean, against Hearts, right? We were getting all the prelude to that. We were getting all the chat, all the narrative around, it's going to take a while to bed in, there are going to be teething problems, all this kind of nonsense, right? Which, some other people in the media came out and said, well, if that's the case, we're not ready to implement it. Why are we implementing it early? Because we have implemented this early. And I look at it and think, well, VAR's not broken. It's just highlighting how bad our officials are. That's what it's doing, and it's doing it week on week. Last night, I didn't watch the game. I seen the usual on the socials with regards to the Hibs and Aberdeen, decisions. Some of them you're looking at, and even Hibs social media got in a pile up. It's completely breaking our game. I mean, if it wasn't already broken with regards to the poor the officialdom, it's getting worse. In that first half, I mean, Ange Postecoglou had a right good giggle at some of the decisions against Hearts. He just looked absolutely bemused in that first half. What do you do? I mean, yeah, we've shown character. We've came back into the game. We've gone in at half time 2-1 up. But there are going to be occasions, Sean. You can't do that every time. We had a couple of bad decisions against Hearts. We've had a couple already in that first half. But we're not always going to find a way. And that's what concerns me the most.
Yeah, and look, and what you're saying about VAR coming in, and that's since it came in, the Hearts game was the first one, right? I think, and since that game, there's been 7 penalties across 4.5 games. We would have not seen anything like that kind of. I'd be surprised if we had 7 penalties in every game preceding that, to be totally honest with you. It's really ramped that up. And what it's doing is just highlighting the incompetence of these officials, because they're having to look at things over again and be like, right. Do you know what I mean? Like, before they could just wave things away, like, oh no, I wasn't sure, or I didn't see it clearly. Now they're getting a clear view, and it's exposing their just inability to interpret the rules and call things,
It's really, really concerning for me, because I'm looking at the outcome of the first decision with regards to the penalty, which is bad enough. But Bernabe gets I don't know what he said to the ref, but he gets a booking as well. And there was a wee moment there where I was looking at Bernabe thinking to myself, you know what, just walk away, because if they get an opportunity to give you a red card, you'll get it. And these are the things that are concerning me. And I've heard all the cliches about, if you're good enough, the ref doesn't matter and all this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, they do. They absolutely do. What we've seen in that first half is the rhythm of our game being shot to bits after the poor decision to award them a penalty. It took us until our second goal to kind of get back at it. And then we've got a player on a booking who, he's feeling aggrieved at the minute, Sean. I know he's gone in at half time. Ange will calm him down, the boys will calm him down. But if he gets one thing mistimed by a millisecond, he's off the park. And I know that for a fact. That's what they'll do to him. And that concerns me. With that in mind, do you think Ange will make any changes? Because I think Ange has sussed out how things work in Scottish football already.
I don't think he will at half time, but I think Taylor will be on shortly. And what you're saying, the VAR thing does absolutely kill our rhythm. For that high foot on Giakoumakis, I take a lot of notes, and I've not got a single note for 10 minutes after that, like full 10 minutes where nothing of note happened after that VAR check on Giakoumakis. Where Nick Walsh wasn't sure if it was a yellow or a red, and the referee on the pitch didn't even give a free kick. So, but yeah, it does. It slows us right down, and Dundee, it helps opposition teams. And I know we'll get a few extra goals from it, like the third goal against Livingston last week. Linesman probably flags that as offside in a non-VAR world, but I don't know. It's a give and take, isn't it? At the moment, it seems to be taken more than it's given from us.
I've a few times, probably over the last month or so, mentioned about something about Giakoumakis. He's a player who I think is a superb acquisition. He's been a fantastic acquisition. I don't think he likes playing on plastic, because I don't think I remember a particularly good performance by him on a plastic pitch. He has a fantastic header in 18 minutes, Sean, and it's a good save. It's a very good save. And I'm looking at that thinking he's in the mood. He's really in the mood. But as you say, there's then that tackle. Can you call it a tackle? In inverted commas. And, it's obviously it's high, it's a poor challenge. But I've mentioned a few times that I watch Giakoumakis in Europe, and he puts himself about, right? And there's a bit of an old-fashioned physicality about him that I really like, because it seems to be outlawed domestically. He gets penalised time and time again. When he is actually hacked, fouled, he very rarely gets the decision for. And even when he gets a free kick there, the severity of the challenge isn't punished adequately, I don't think. Again, I'm always trying to speak in as balanced a way as I possibly can when it comes to the officials. I don't want to come across as if I've got some kind of conspiracy, but I think he's a shining example of how a player is not treated to the laws of the game domestically, but in Europe he is. I mean, the amount of free kicks he wins in Europe is phenomenal. It's it's the best, one of the best parts of his games. Back in the Europa last season and in the Champions League this season, he wins possession, he holds it up, he wins free kicks, he buys us a bit of time. Am I looking too much into that, Sean, or do you think there's something to be said there?
100% agree with you, yeah. And I don't know why that is, to be honest. I don't know if it's a Celtic thing or if it's a Scottish football style of play thing. There was a Charlie Richmond interview on Off the Ball a couple of weeks ago where he came out and just straight up said, he loves it when a defender goes down because it's easy to give a free kick when the ball's going out of play. He said, great, defender goes down, easy free kick. So these refs have had their comfort zones, their comfort blankets. We know that they are not calling the game fairly, and we're just so used to it, we accept it. And like you say, when we go into Europe, that doesn't happen. We actually get decent refereeing, and I would love it if Scottish referees could get to that standard. And I think something was mentioned to that effect by Michael Nicholson at the AGM this week, or was it Bankier? One of them said something like that.
It's just consistency. That's all we're looking for, right? Is a consistency of decision making. We're just asking these people to do their jobs properly. Do I enjoy talking about refereeing on Acsom bulletins and match days? No, I don't actually. I would rather not have to speak about it. I would much rather talk about the performance of Haksabanovic in that first half. The fact that, Jota's back in the team and doing what Jota does. The fact that O'Reilly has taken like a duck to water to this new position since Callum McGregor has been out injured. These are the things I want to talk about. The partnership being developed between Jens and Carter Vickers. I don't want to talk about the refs, but when they're this bad, you can't ignore it. And you know what? We'd be doing a disservice to everybody that tunes in if we were to ignore it, Sean. I'm looking at some of these comments coming in. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with us. Daniel Brown didn't expect VAR to fix everything, but this is ridiculous. You said the word ridiculous. I wrote it down on my notes. I think everybody watching felt exactly the same. I would expect Ange to stick to his guns in terms of when he likes to make the changes. Just before we get back to the action, we spoke a wee bit about Turnbull. How do you think David Turnbull's performed in that first half?
I thought he started really poorly. The first thing he did was give away possession, like his first touch in the game. And he was, for the first 15, 20 minutes, it was 2 touches for everything. but he kind of seemed to settle into it a little bit. He's still a bit off the pace, but his touch is coming back. So I think we're not going to. I don't expect him to do much there at the start of the second half, but it's part of his process of building back to being in the first team.
Absolutely is. Listen, thank you very much, everybody, for getting involved. That was a frustrating first half, but we did go in 2-1 up. Let's go and join the action for the second half. Sean and I will be back at full time. All that's left for me to say, once again, Sean Conley, thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of